So tonight, we're going to talk about how to pursue what you want. And how I want to start is the way that I generally always start things, and that is with a story. So I'm going to go back to around a year ago. I was booked to go to a writer's retreat in Paris, which started on a Monday morning. And so, being a little bit paranoid about getting there early, I traveled there the day before on a Sunday, traveled to Paris, got to the hotel, settled in, and thought, okay, I'm going to walk the direction of the retreat, which was in the center of Paris, near Notre Dame, beautiful area. So I punched the address into Google. And Google said it's going to be 22 minutes walk. So I thought, fantastic, it's going to be a 22-minute walk. Nothing, it's going to be great. So I set off. I kind of listened to the instructions that Google was giving me, but I set off. But here's the thing. 3 hours later, I was still walking around the area of Notre Dame, totally lost, completely confused. Downcast, downhearted, I picked up a taxi and took me back to the hotel. The next morning, the morning of the retreat, I thought, Michelle, don't give up. Google said it's 22 minutes. It has to be 22 minutes. So I punched it again. And this time, I focused exactly on what it was telling me. Turn right, I turned right. It told me turn left, I turned left. Carry on, I carried on. 22 minutes exactly, I arrived at the location of the retreat. So what was different from one day to the other? The day that I had got lost the day before, and the day that I was able to find it, clearly, effortlessly. Well, here's the thing. The day before, on that Sunday, I really meant to get to the location of the retreat. I really did. But I got distracted. There were street acts, jugglers, markets, artists, musicians, all sorts of things. I just got completely sidelined, distracted, sidelined. It was just so amazing that I got completely lost. The day later, I shut all distractions away, and I was able to get from where I was, which was a hotel, to where I wanted to be, effortlessly. Now, that whole experience reminds me of pursuing what we want, because we're all really well-meaning. We really want to pursue what we want. We really want to get there. But what happens when things get in the way? Distractions, people-pleasing, saying yes to everything that comes up. What happens? And that's what I'd like to look at, that piece. Not only how to pursue what you want, but really looking at what could help you get over those distractions that could get in the way of what you want to create. So as Laura said before, my name is Michelle Atias. I'm a mindset expert. I'm a coach. I'm an international speaker, and I'm an author. And when I talk about being a mindset expert, what I really mean is I'm an expert on my own mindset, because I was a psychotherapist for many, many years before I became a coach. And what I teach my clients to become is experts on their own mindset, so they can become better decision makers and action takers without the stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and distractions. So how I'd like to split my talk today is I'd like to give you a little bit of my personal story, not too much, but just a little inkling. And I'm going to weave pursuing what you want through the personal story. Then I'm going to talk about the subject matter of today. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to do a little exercise. So you will have to speak to the person sitting next to you, whether you like it or not. And then I'm going to teach you 4 ways that you can go from where you are to where you want to be. I'm then going to invite you to ask any questions you have for about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to close off. So before we get going, what I'd like to do is to just let you know that I do have a camera. I do have the lovely Nikki at the back of the room who's taken the video today, mainly because I love taking the videos and videoing all my talks so I can put them on my YouTube channel. So if you ever want to revisit this talk, it's on the YouTube channel. You can revisit it. But not only that, if you are going to share something that's specifically personal to you, something that you don't want the whole world to know, then just be aware that there's a camera. So that's just something that I'd like you to be aware of. Okay, so let me start with my personal story. And I'm just going to give you a little nugget of it. I am originally from Gibraltar, which is the south of Spain. And when I was about 18, I left Gibraltar to live in Israel. I ended up living in Israel for 3 years. And then I came to settle in the UK. I'm going to rewind back to that story. Similar to the Paris story, actually. When I left home at 18 to live in Israel, I actually only left for 2 weeks. Ended up staying for 3 years. When I came to live in London, I came to live here just for 6 months because the Gulf War was raging in the Middle East. They were handing out gas masks, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to come to London, and I'm going to stay here for a little bit, for about 6 months, and then I'm going to go back. 28 years later, I'm still here. And this is what tends to happen, is that we want to pursue something, but we kind of get sidelined. And I'm very happy I'm here. I've chosen to stay here. But 5 years ago, I woke up to the fact that everything in my life was a series of defaults. It was a series of sidetracks that I'd taken. I never really had a plan. Never really had a plan for what I wanted. At the time, I was a psychotherapist. I had my own little clinic in northwest London. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to be doing what I'm doing now. And it felt so far away, this person who was going to become a coach, so close off my psychotherapy practice, become a life coach, whole different element to being a therapist, become a speaker. I was petrified of speaking, absolutely petrified of public speaking, and become a writer and an author. All those things felt so huge. But it's great to be able to project into who you want to become for however long it takes. So in order to do that, I had to firstly have a vision of what I wanted to be, what I wanted. Allow myself to be able to want something. Acknowledging that I could want it, firstly. And secondly, hiring mentors, coaches, setting up myself in a mastermind group, accountability partners, looking at self-doubt, self-esteem, distractions, all those things that could take me away from what I wanted to create. I had to be really homed in and really, really focused, just like I had been on that second day walking to the retreat in Paris, cutting out everything, friendships that just weren't serving me, situations that weren't serving me, to get from where I was all those years ago to where I am now. So it's really important to look at that. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I had a client, for example, that I worked with last year. He was a very successful banker. He wanted coaching. He wasn't sure what he wanted coaching for because he didn't know what he wanted or what he wanted to create. So he came to me for coaching, and I asked him one question. I said to him, imagine that you're 90 years old, 90, and you're looking back at your life. What would you like to have created? So he thought for a few moments, and he said, well, actually, I'd love to move back to South Africa. I'd love to get married, to have kids. I would love to buy an investment property here in the UK so I can have some passive income. And I would love to also get involved in some charities in South Africa. I would love to give something back. So that was a premise that we worked off. So again, it was like projecting out into the future and working backwards. So what did he need to be doing today? And this is something that you can all think about. What is it that you need to be doing today to create what you want in the future? So he had to start taking actions like writing applications to South Africa, and looking at estate agents to be able to buy an investment property, all those actions, but also looking at what could get in the way. Self-esteem. He had huge amounts of self-doubt. He was always distracted, always reacting. He couldn't focus on anything for very long. So all of that we had to look at so that we could clear it away and he could start creating this future that he wanted. Within a couple of months, he'd had a job offer in South Africa. And within no time, he'd exchanged on his first property. So it's really, spontaneity is amazing. Sometimes things happen spontaneously and it's amazing. But it's also great to have a plan and to look at who do we want to become. So if you look at yourself at 90 years old, looking back at your life, what would you like to have created? What really would you like to have there in that life? And I can really relate this because my dad is in his mid-90s. And I see him look back at his life now and I see the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, the wonderful wife, the companies and the businesses that he had. Everything is just exactly how it needs to be. I don't think he could have wished for anything better. And I really see how you can look back and think, wow, yeah, it's exactly what I want to create. This is perfect. So what we tend to do instead of projecting forward is we tend to go back. We tend to live with like a rear side mirror, like looking back. So we create from the past. We say, well, actually, I wasn't very good at that. I failed in 5 different things. I wasn't so good at the other things. So I can only be who I was in the past, and that's what I'm going to keep creating. But when you create from the future, and you and you rewind a little bit, you're creating possibility. You're creating new things. So it's just something for you to remember because it's just a very different mindset, looking from the past or projecting yourself into the future. So that's one of the things. Secondly, there are 2 words that we tend to use all day, every day, that really get in the way of what we want to create. And that is the words yes and no. We use them all the time. All the time. And that often, that yes that we constantly say, often takes us away from what we want. And one thing to remember is that when you get asked to do something, ask yourself, is saying yes to this taking me one step further or one step away from what I want? Is it a plus one or a minus one? Because saying yes to one thing is always saying no to something else. So be aware of your yeses and your nos. I think often we are so stuck into people pleasing, into saying yes all the time, that it takes us away. Completely takes us away. I remember a couple of weeks I was in, I'm part of a mastermind, and I was part of the mastermind, and one of the ladies in the mastermind said to me, you know, Michelle, I'm doing this project, and I would like you to be part of it, and, you know, it's going to be great. And I looked at her, and I said, well, actually, it sounds amazing, but no, because there's other things I want to focus on right now. And somebody else who was at the mastermind said, wow, you said no. Like, I never say no. I'm just always so happy to be asked that I just say yes to everything that I'm asked to do. But the problem is, it takes away from my focus. And it takes away from what I really want to create. If you're saying yes to this direction and you want to go this direction, you're going to have a huge, big blank space here that you have to fill. So just be aware what your language, what you say yes, what you say no to. So what I'd love to do, as I said before that I was going to do, is I would love you to get into partners. If the person next to you, you already know, then maybe partner off with somebody else. But if you can get into partners, and I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise, okay? Right, we're talking today about how to pursue what you want. And what I'm really curious to know is, what do you want? It's a simple question. It's a very uncomfortable question for some of my clients. When I'm coaching them, they feel they shouldn't want anything. Selfish, it's self-centered. Now, I know we all want inner peace, happiness, world peace. We all want all these global things which are amazing. But what do you really want? I mean, why are you here tonight? What do you want to create? So get into partners, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes each to share, okay? So choose who's going to share first, okay? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes each, and I'll let you know when you have to swap over, okay? So it's, what do you want? Who would like to share? Something that came up, or who would like to share? Wow. Great. Okay. So what would you like to share?
So we asked the question, what do you want? I said I would like to act. That it's something that even now I think on my deathbed, what would I regret if I didn't do? And the fact I already know that would be a regret, but I don't do it because I don't have any money. Just about, but in my head it's always there, like.
So you want to act, but there's all that overthinking that you have behind it, telling you, well, you can't, you're never going to have any money, what's the point, So all of that is what the acting is what is a want that's trying to come out, but there's all that overthinking that's pushing it down. So it's great that you're aware of it. That's always the first step to actually shifting it. And the next question could take you there a little bit. Okay, who else would like to share? Thank you for that share.
It's interesting, both of us know we want something different, but we don't really know what exactly we want.
Okay, so there's no clarity there of what exactly you want. But you know that you want something different. So are you saying that what you have right now is not really what you want? Okay, well, that's a great insight, isn't it? That we all started like that. I started like that 5 years ago. I didn't know what it was that I wanted exactly. I didn't know it was going to look like me standing at Red Bull 5 years later. I didn't know that, but I knew that I didn't want what I had, and something needed to change. So that's a great start. That little seed's been planted. You just have to water it now. Right, who else? Thank you very much for those shares. Anybody else would like to share?
We were talking and we sort of had similar ideas in the sense that we both want our own companies, but obviously different companies. But I think one of the limiting things is like financially, it's hard to start your own company when you don't have enough capital to start.
Yeah. And isn't it funny how we can't just want something and bathe in it and kind of bask in it and just kind of enjoy it. It's like we want it and it quickly has to be followed by a thought. Yeah, but you can't have it. No, but you mustn't. No, but you're not going to have enough money. So it's interesting how we can't just enjoy it. And I really relate to that. I had huge amounts of overthinking about every single thing I was going to do in my life. And I was a psychotherapist for 10 years. Trust me. In fact, that actually made it worse because I was psychoanalyzing why I had that thinking and what past thing did I do that brought me there. So but it's funny how the want is accompanied by that thought. So it's no surprise that a lot of us don't end up doing what we want. And then we end up very, very frustrated. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else has any insight or thought that came up? Anything over this side?
I'll share. So for me it was, I'm one of the people who do a lot of different things. I'm a freelancer and I love doing all those things. I love being a designer, I love being a community manager. But I kind of got to the point of figuring out I want to do one thing great, but because I love all these things, it's almost but if I stop doing that, sort of that, will I be able to design again? So for me, I want to figure out which one of those things, if everything, who am I? What?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us enjoy I know I enjoy loads of things, but I do know that, here's the thing, sometimes we have to think about not only what we want, but what are we committed to? I knew a number of years ago, I have 2 daughters, and I was committed to being a role model to them. I was committed to teaching them how a woman could be professionally. I was a single parent. I wanted to be a good role model as a single parent. I didn't want people to pity me or look down on me in my community. So I had to step out of that. But I was committed to that. So whatever I did and whatever I said yes to was my commitment. So perhaps you need to look at maybe you're committed to saying yes to everything. Maybe you're committed to enjoying everything, and maybe you're not ready to kind of sit with one thing and really, really intensify it and give it your all. But it's a longer conversation, but thank you, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Thank you.
So there's what I want and there's what I need, of course, so it's different. But what I want is, I'm very specific, I want 750,000 to build, to buy a piece of land in LA where I live, and to build on it a studio that interlaces video gaming, which I'm a producer in, and film and TV.
So projecting yourself into this person who will have that £750,000 plot in LA, but what do you need to be doing today to get there? Do you need to change your connections so that you are with connections that perhaps are maybe higher level connections? Do you need to, what do you need to start doing from now to get you there? And that's just something you might want to think about. So, but thank you very much for sharing. So the next question is, what is getting in the way of what you want? Which is a little bit of what was going on for a lot of you. I want this, but the overthinking. So what is getting in the way? Is it a person? Is it a situation that you're telling yourself is getting in the way, and most of it is might be true or might not be true? But what I want you to do is, your partner who shares and is sharing what is getting in the way of what you want, so one of you will be sharing that. What I want the other person to do is to ask, is that true? That's all. Sometimes we're so used to rattling on the same thing. Well, we can't because of money. Or I can't because my boyfriend doesn't let me. Or I can't because my wife doesn't let me. And sometimes when you think, well, is that true? You think, actually, maybe that isn't quite true. Maybe I've never really thought about whether that's true or not. It's just what I'm thinking. So I'd love you to get into that conversation. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes each. One of you will share what is getting in the way, and the other one will ask, is that true? Okay? And then we're going to swap over. So it's 2 minutes each. Have you got So what is getting in the way of pursuing what you want? Who would like to share? Anybody would like to share what came up?
So we kind of, it wasn't really something like getting in the way. It was just kind of like we want to like grow and develop ourselves to a certain level before we then step out into what it is that we really want.
So you're saying there's things that you need to do in terms of personal development to push through so that you can then get to the next level that will give you more clarity? Is that what you're saying? Okay, so you've identified that. Great. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else identified something else that maybe you've been telling yourself that's getting in the way but actually might not be true or is true?
Yeah, maybe like the fear of failing.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Yeah. And I think every single talk that I've ever given, every single one, there will always be somebody in the audience who says exactly what you're just saying now. Almost the same words. That fear of failure is huge. So yeah, so that fear of, and the truth is the fear of failure is really a thought. I'm thinking I'm going to fail, so I'm going to feel that fear of failure. And therefore, what I'm going to experience and my decisions moving forward are going to be always making decisions that won't take me to a place of failure, which means you don't really push your comfort zone that much or do things that could take you to that place. So it's just something to think about. And yeah, and what does failure really mean? People will make fun of you, people will judge you, people will look down at you. What does actually failure really mean? How do we know when we failed? Might be something you need to think about. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Oh.
I think probably going to what was said over there earlier, if you don't know what you want, I'm kind of stuck in this thing as well. I don't know exactly what I want. It's a bit ambiguous, so I don't really know, but there obviously is something getting in the way of pursuing what I want, but I'm not really sure what it is that I want.
Yeah, that's exactly. And sometimes that happens. And I think, like the ladies were talking about before, is like you don't know specifically what you want, and I think that's the first sign, but you might look at your life now and think, I don't really want this. I don't know what I want, and I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know I don't want this. And sometimes that can take us to the next step. Sometimes we don't have clarity of exactly what it's going to look like. We just know what we have now is just not working, and that's, again, the first step. So that might be a place to go, which is, am I okay with where I am right now? And take it from there. Because sometimes it's not like we're going to have this clear thing of what we want as all beautiful. Sometimes it's not like that. We just know we don't want to live how we've been living for so far. It just doesn't work. So that's a great place to start. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? I don't know if I saw a hand. Oh, sorry. I'll come back to you. Sorry.
I was going to say that I have this, like, I really want to be a thought leader in terms of ethical technology and that kind of stuff, and because it's my passion. And for a long time, I thought that I couldn't really do public speaking about that because I'm really junior in my field. I've only really been in the industry for a year and a half. And then I kind of just did it.
Wow.
And that worked out for me. And now I have people actually calling me and asking me to speak about this stuff. And so that's why I kind of, in terms of like this feeling of, you know, either needing to work on your self-confidence or needing to be better at something or having more experience, like that can sometimes be false. It's not necessarily that. And like my lovely partner here said, people will listen to you if you have something to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we think, you know, when I'm more confident, then I'll go for what I want. When I have more self-esteem, when I'm not anxious anymore. And I have to say to you that often you just have to do what you have to do. And the confidence might never go away. You know, the confidence, it's not like one day you're going to be super self-confident and then you're going to do it. It's just go do it. And don't wait. I mean, I know when I published my book a few months ago, and it was very anxiety-provoking. Now, if I would have waited for that anxiety to go away, or the overthinking to go away, or my fear of perfection, and all of that to go away, I wouldn't have published anything. I just had to do it despite it. So I felt anxiety, I still did it. I felt lack of self-confidence, I still did it. I had huge fear of judgment, still did it. Never went away. It didn't matter, it didn't go away. I just didn't take it seriously. The problem is we take it seriously. We think it means something. We think it means we have to stop. If I'm anxious about releasing a book, it must mean it's not a good idea. Just stop it. And so you can do it and still feel these feelings. They're just simply coming from your thinking. And it's feeding through. And so that stuff of, well, you know, I want to pursue what I want, but I have to wait till certain conditions are there, is kind of a myth. Just do it. Because I know that, you know, I've met so many people who, you know, when they've got really, really sick, they've got really ill and they've had life-threatening illnesses, they haven't hesitated to set up Facebook groups, charity groups. A year earlier, they would have been totally petrified to do that. But when push comes to shove and they really need to do it, they go do it. So maybe you just need to get to that place of really wanting it enough when you know what you want. And that's you're still in that place, which is good. We all start there. Anybody else wants to share anything that came up?
We were talking, I think what is interesting is like you know what it is that's getting in the way, but you're not doing anything about it.
Yes.
And that is committing to it. You know, so it's all about you're not committing
Yes.
to it and
Yes.
giving it everything. And I think it's something, I don't know,
And the
that
question-
I think is
yes.
quite relevant is like, yes, this has to be done, but you're not 100% committing to it. But you're very much aware of what needs to be done.
Well, you might be committed to something else. You might be committed to people pleasing. You might be committed to, other things, to running around reacting to other things, or you might be committed and attached to other behaviors. But what you really want, and you might not be so committed to. So maybe when you let go of committing to the other thing, you'll be able to commit to this one thing. So look at what am I really committed to, and sometimes it's about really being honest. Really being honest with yourself. No judgment, no criticism. Actually, I'm really committed to people pleasing. I'm really committed to, always, not really getting my needs met. Or I'm really, and being really committed to what's holding you back, to stepping up there and creating what you want, to at least taking that first step to start there. You were talking about starting to do things, even though, and just doing it. And so I think sometimes we want to make sure everything's perfect before we set off, and that doesn't often happen. Anybody else? Yeah.
I was going to say that sometimes, even though I think that I don't have these worries anymore, the like traditional expectations of my parents, as in like you need that paycheck every month, you know, I still have, even though I like to think that I don't, I'm pretty sure that I do. So I have that kind of like tradition of like you need a steady job, monthly paycheck, not just like one off.
So what is? So you're saying that you are worried about, you know, that you are taking on your parents' sort of thought system, their mindset?
Or just not wanting to scare them, basically. If I was to be like, no, I'm going to do this now. I don't want to like freak them out.
Yeah, okay. Great. Well, that's something to think about. This is all rustling up. This is all moving and rustling up, which is great. This is how we all started. And that's how I started. So that's fantastic. So anybody else want to ask anything or share anything before we move on? I think you wanted to share, didn't you? 1 second, I'm not forgetting you.
It's like you are expected to do certain things. It's like the expectation that, you know, comes from family, the community. Like if you're female or male, you're expected to do, for example, even if you was, I don't know, like I'm a gamer as well. I play a lot of online games, especially a certain type, and a lot of people don't expect that from me, being a female. Or like, I don't know, if you're a chef, they would expect you to cook the best dish ever. But like, it's a lot of expectations that come across. That's why you kind of try to follow what people expect you to do rather than kind of stepping out of it and trying to do other things.
Absolutely. So you're buying into other people's expectations of what you should be doing and who you should be, rather than actually looking inside and saying, well, actually, what do I want? So there's what you want and who you are. And you're yearning, and then there's, oh, these people have this expectation of me. And then you end up living a life based on other people's expectations rather than your own. And that's what you have to think about. Do I want to live a life of, you know, making sure other people are happy with me, happy with what I do? That's really, again, when we talk about commitment, that's what you're committed to, rather than committing to you, what you want, and really starting to give it a voice. So again, this is another seed to be planted. Okay? Is that helpful? Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. So I'm going to look at a few ways that you can go from where you are to where you want to be. So I'm going to show you 4 ways, 4 very easy ways. It's not that complicated. So one of the first things that I found the most powerful when I was trying to make changes was your language. I talk about mind your language. Look at the language that you use to describe your life, to describe what's happening to you, to describe what you're wanting to create. What I see a lot of is people sort of using words like, well, I can't, I don't, I mustn't, I shouldn't, I need to because of other people's expectations, I shouldn't, rather than I choose to, I want to, I don't want to. I see a lot of language of victim versus ownership. And I think when you're trying to create something different, or when you're trying to create what you want is really to be able to create a language of possibility. So, you know, really being mindful with those words. I mean, I remember working with a client last year who, he was just going through a very, very difficult divorce, and he was setting up a new business as well alongside that. And he used to come to me for the sessions using words like war, weapons, fighting, battle, and he was wondering why he was always stressed. So one day I said to him, I said, are you living in a war-torn country? And he said, no, actually, I live in South London, I don't live in a war-torn country. So I said, well, why are you using the language of war? Can you see how stressed you are just by using those words? Because if you're using the words, they're coming from your thinking. That's a mindset. Those words are coming from your thinking. They're making you feel that. And then your experience is one of stress, of battle, of fighting. So I said to him, what's really the truth about what you're going through? He said, actually, I'm going through a transition. He was going through a difficult time, actually. Lots of different changes in his life. He said, that's the truth. And I said to him, well, throughout the week, when you think about those words that you're just about to use, like battle, war, fighting, just tell yourself, I'm just going through a transition. It's going to be fine. I'm just going through a transition. The following week, he came to me and he said, I've had the easiest week. I've had just the easiest week. I don't know what the hell has happened this week. But it's been so effortless. I don't know. Like, everything's effortless. Everything's easy. When you change your language, when you change your words, it really shifts a lot. So be mindful of what you're using. Is this language of victim? I can't, I mustn't, I'm never going to get there, it's never going to happen. Or is it ownership? I'm going to choose to do what needs doing to get to what I want. So be aware of those words that you're using because they're very, very powerful. So the first thing is language. The second thing is when you're about to embark on something, it's really much easier to break it into manageable chunks. Sometimes you are trying to create something or you're trying to look at what you want and you're seeing this huge, big overwhelm of what it's going to take to get there. When I was writing my book, I started off by blocking out 1 hour each day, 1 hour every morning, 8 to 9 a.m. I would write. During that hour a day, I didn't allow overthinking to come on board, issues of perfection or who the hell is this book going to be for, what's my niche, all the rubbish that I was trying to get into my head. For that hour a day, I just pushed it away. For that, it took me about a month to write it, on 1 hour a day. When I finished during that month, the only question I had was, okay, what's next? So what was next was finding an editor. So I found an editor who looked through the manuscript. He liked it. So I thought, okay, what's next? Well, now I've got to find a publisher. And my book was published. Now, if I would have to think about, when I sat down to write down that book, if I would have had to think about the editing process, the publishing process, which is tedious and painful almost, if I would have had to think about it, I wouldn't even have sat down to write a single word. Sometimes we start worrying about what's going to happen 10 stages down the line. Like you wanted to do your acting, but you're already thinking it's not going to make me money. That's exactly how I was thinking when I started writing 3 years ago when I began to become a contributing writer. And it ended up in a book. I didn't know that when I started. So, you know, we tend to think about the last stage, and then it all feels overwhelming and unmanageable and terrifying. So, you know, when you're going to do something, break it into pieces. What do I need to do today? What's required of me now? Not only will it make you more present, it will always make you more focused on the moment. And ask yourself, okay, what's next? I don't need to worry about the other thing right now. I just need to worry about what I need to worry about from today. Okay? So it's just breaking things down to manageable chunks. I'm aware of the time, so I need to keep my stories to a minimum, otherwise I could be here all night. Okay, the next one is look back at your most recent successes. When you're going to create something, when you're going to go for something, often self-doubt, issues of self-esteem, they all come in. They say, oh, we can't do this. When I look back at my successes, when I look at that, what I'd like you to imagine is, imagine that you are summoned to court. And you are asked to give evidence of how good you are, of your strengths, all the wonderful things you've achieved. It could be that you have a fantastic testimonial from an ex-client, or you have somebody that you worked with that really loved your work. Collate that. I remember when I was transitioning from psychotherapist to coach, it was a huge transition that. And you know, I did it by beginning to look at testimonials and beginning to make a document that showed that I could really do this, actually. So this just gives you a way of seeing evidence that you can do this. You've got all these amazing testimonials. People have said that how many great things that you've done for them, and you collate it into a document. And it's a great boost for those days when you wake up and you think, I can't do this. You know, I give up. So it's just a great energy boost, and and it's also evidence and it's truth. So that's the next thing. And one of the final things here is, just before we start the questions, is accountability. Accountability for me, is huge. And these places are amazing to find people who also want to grow and also want to be accountable with you. If you cannot get a mentor, if you cannot get a coach, accountability is perfect. I remember a few years ago, I went to a Tony Robbins Unleash Your Power conference. Part of it was, the first night was Walking on Fire. And I was really looking forward to doing it. And Tony Robbins, at the end of the evening, asked us to get into partners with an accountability partner. And I remember feeling really irritated, thinking, but I can do this. I'm so looking forward to it. I don't need an accountability partner. So I got together with this guy. I'd only met for 5 minutes, shared why I wanted to walk on fire. He shared it with me. And I thought, okay, this is a bit of a waste of time, but okay, so we'll go through this walking on fire together. The problem was that by the time it became midnight, it was a freezing cold February night. It really was. We were barefoot, walking along the Excel Center, chanting, 8,000 people around me, 30 fires burning around the other section. And I just thought to myself, what the hell am I doing here? All my friends are doing something very different on a Friday night. What am I doing here? I want to turn back. I'm not doing this. But here's the thing, I couldn't turn back. This guy was so excited to support me, and I had to support him. So I had to stay there, and I'll always remember that I wanted to run away so badly. I reached the front of the fire. I walked through it. It was amazing. It was exhilarating. I loved it, and I'm so happy. But I saw how quickly I almost didn't do it. Now, you might not have fire to walk through, but sometimes pursuing what you want is going to feel like walking on fire. And you're going to have somebody there to tell you, you can do this. I've got your back. I believe in you. So that's a really powerful way of doing it, and that's accountability. One of the things I want to do is, as I said before, one of the ways that you really make a change, because you're talking about taking action, like everybody's always so excited when they come to an event, but then when they leave, their life goes back to the way it was. And then they're disappointed because they think, well, I mean, the actual speaker should have taken me to that change. You know, she or he should have been that change that I needed. Actually, the change starts with you. The change starts from you taking value, a nugget of wisdom, something from every single talk that you go to, and implement it, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else. So one of the actions you can take, first of all, I've just published my book, Look Inside, Stop Seeking, Start Living. And this is a great book that accompanies this talk. It's very much about looking inside and discovering your own personal direction. So that is my book, and that's a great company to this talk. Secondly, as you know, I'm a coach, and I've got coaching programs. So if you want to talk to me about any of my coaching programs, I'm staying after the break. I have a 3-month coaching program or a fantastic 6-week coaching accelerator, which is short, impactful, and affordable. So that's great. Thirdly, what I'd like you to do, this is how I'd like to almost semi-finish off. I'd like you to take your phones out your bag. Now, normally I want the phones well in the bag, but not today. I want you to take your phones out of your bag or wallet or pocket or whatever. Not to go on WhatsApp or Facebook or who's on Twitter or whatever. Just take your phones out and go to your calendar settings, okay? Go to tomorrow's date on your calendar settings. And if you've got any text messages coming up, just ignore it now, because we're focusing now on the matter at hand. So put the calendar setting for tomorrow morning, say 9 a.m. So you'll all get the alarm at the same time. I'm going to give you a couple of moments of silence, and I just want you to think back at the talk tonight. It could be that you heard something I said. It could be that the person next to you said something, or somebody asked a question. And it made you think. It gave you an insight. And I want you to choose one action you are going to take tomorrow. Maybe something different that you're going to do. Maybe something that you're going to be more mindful about. Just one teensy-weensy little thing that you're going to do tomorrow. And that alarm is going to be set for 9 a.m. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to think through tonight. And it could be that when you're on the train, other things might come up that you want to add to that. But let's just start with this. Just add one action. Okay, is everybody done? It's okay if you're not, because you can continue wherever you go to next or however you travel next. Okay, so it's just that, as I said before, that when you go to a talk, you go back home and your life goes back to normal. Just something that you're going to be a little bit accountable for. And because you're going to have the alarm for 9, and you know the person next to you that you were talking to is going to also get that alarm at 9, maybe you can send them a text message and say, hey, how's that going? You said you wanted this. Have you done it yet? Be accountable to each other. And here's why it's important. Because what a lot of people tend to do when they're in an audience is they take on a lot of information. They go to different places and it's information, information, information. But what I'd like tonight is for you to go from information to transformation. Thank you very much. Thank you for being such a great audience.